Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant from Akulmac Technologies, and I'm in company of very senior professional, a global player who joins us today, Ian Moyes, Chief Revenue Officer of OneUp Sales. He joins us from London, and we will talk about very interesting subject. But before that, let me invite Ian.
Hi, everyone. I'm pleased to be here, and hopefully we're going to have a meaningful conversation that will give you some insight and some value in your time spent listening.
It will be a pleasure, Ian. I think one big problem that everyone has, and people like you and me, we have to handle a lot of distributed workforce across the world. And the challenge that all of us are facing, all the chief executives and all the leaders across the world are facing that how they manage the workforce, that is one, and how they keep the workforce motivated. And since you work globally with so many organizations, with so many leaders, what is your opinion on this issue that we have?
Yeah, sure. And it's a challenge that was thrown on all of us, right? But before COVID, there was a mixed opinion on remote working. So we had many people already doing it, remote working, getting on with it. But often they were in certain roles. So, for example, territorial-based salespeople were often in this game anyway. Nothing's changed. They were remote working. They were out on the road with customers, and they periodically would come to an office. So for those, the role and the behaviour type may have been ingrained in them for years. The real challenge has been those other, particularly back office people who previously were hired to be in an office. How many people would have hired a finance team or a support team previous to this on the basis of hiring remote workers? There are some, but most companies, even the high tech, leaders in the workspace and the most innovative, had a physical space or multiple physical spaces. They wanted that team camaraderie. They wanted people to learn from people through osmosis. The people sat around them. They wanted to drive motivation through a leader walking the floor. The old management by walking around. So not many had thought about what would happen if we were all put into this situation for obvious reasons. And I think that the thing to contend now is how has behavior changed, and how does it need to change in leading teams? Whether that team is small or large, how are you behaving in engaging with those individuals and managing them? And one of the behaviors I've seen and had discussions around is typically people metricize this. So you look for metrics that are easy to measure, KPIs, for example, and that you can visibly see in systems. So people will look in their CRM for how many calls has someone made today, or what activity have they created? Are they being active? And this is one of the first areas I challenge people, that activity is not necessarily productivity. Activity does not, by definition, have a direct correlation to the outcome. There is a difference between correlation and causation. What you want is activity that causes the right outcome, but doesn't just show you that someone's busy. So it's very difficult, because what I've seen is leaders looking at the activity in a system and then using the stick approach to pick up on an individual of, well, you're not doing enough calls, you don't seem like you're working, up putting enough activity in. And there's a real danger in leadership and management that you will interact with your team, with your employee, in a different way that stems from suspicion. Right? If you suspect they're not putting the effort in, how are you going to address that? And that's the hard piece, particularly now it's remote. Because in an office, you'll see that behavior. The individual around their colleagues will probably feel that behavior themselves, right? If that individual slacks off for a 2-hour lunch, if that individual is easing back and not putting the effort in, maybe not, in a work environment, it would probably be a conscious thing. You can feel that's happening because you can see people busy around you. If you've stood at the water cooler having a chat for 2 hours, people are seeing you. There is a sort of self-policing aspect. If you're at home How many, you don't have a camera on watching everyone the whole time, right? It's inappropriate. You've got to trust the behavior of individuals to be getting on with their job. How do you know they are? How do they know they are is an interesting question. They may be slacking. What if they're working at 70%, 60%, 30% of normal, but they've slowly evolved into that behavior and they don't realize themselves because they haven't got visibility of colleagues around them. They haven't got the buzz of the office of what's going on. You know, there'll be some metrics in your systems, whether they be CRMs or ticketing systems or what they've been, but do they have visibility of how they compare and contrast to the people around them? Do they know actually they're doing the least effort per day out of a team of 10, 30 people, whatever it is? People don't want to be letting people down by the nature of it, but at home they have more distractions. So it's a different environment. It's something we've not had to deal with before. And it's very easy for a leader or manager to fall into miscreant behaviors, you know, using the stick instead of the carrot, using the negative. And does a manager, you know, I ask myself this, do I really want to spot someone who isn't behaving in the right way, isn't you know, is letting the team down? That is a difficult call. What do? Do I call them in the afternoon and say, look, you're letting it, it's an uncomfortable call for me, you know, and it's an uncomfortable call for that individual, particularly when they may say, well, I didn't know, I had no intention, and it all feels bad. It's one of those difficult conversations. So I think we need to look at, you know, a number of factors. How the individual, what is it? Did you understand the individual situation of that team member? Because they may have specific challenges today that you need to appreciate, depending if they're homeschooling, depending if their partner is in you know, the medical services, having to do things differently than they were before, work extra hours. What is their situation? And then understand what is the behavior you should be able to expect from them still. Because you, after all, you're still paying them. You know, whilst we're all in a difficult situation, they still have a role to deliver to. And if they're not delivering, what impact does that have on the people around them? That's the other aspect. You know, if one person or two people out of a team are being allowed to not perform, does that create extra work for the others? Do the others have visibility or feeling of that? And how does it make them behave? Does it make them feel, well, if they can do it, I can do it? So it's not we're not in an easy place right now for any leader or manager in terms of the people. And I think the people is the hardest piece we're having to deal with.
Yes, and actually, these are very real problems. In fact, all of us are facing it, and there are tools available in the market which you know, companies like us, small companies, can invest in, and there are VPNs to measure the time. But I'm sure what the point that you're making is very relevant. You know, we can build all the systems, but the humane side is something that we need to reconsider, because nowadays we are also getting exposed to the personal home affairs of our employees, right? Because, you know,
Yeah.
in the video we can see, like you mentioned, the partners may be busy and these guys are doing babysitting while working also. So what is the solution, Ian? I think now we have identified the issue, how we can tackle it.
Yeah, so I think there's a number of things. I think one is that, let me give you some examples of the things you can do. One is think about doing regular team calls. You know, perhaps doing a morning huddle. Think what works for you and your team and the size of the team. But some of the behaviors I've seen and talked to people that are working well, and many people have adopted this, is, you know, are you having, for example, a morning call every morning for 15 minutes where everyone jumps on that's available, and it isn't about jumping on and checking the metrics, etc. It's about having a chat. It's having a coffee. It's that behavior you have when you go into the office, where you also have morning, oh, what did you do last night? That sort of thing. Is just creating that camaraderie so they don't feel isolated. So it's the people piece. Or, you know, the other way you can do that is do a beginning of the week and end of the week. Just think what works for your team, but something where you bring the team together. So that's number one. Two is thinking about touching base with the team members. And I do this with my team and have done this over the whole COVID, but not in a way that is isolating the individual. What I mean by that is have a legitimate reason to touch base. Now, it might be they're working on a particular customer opportunity or a customer problem or a particular project. Have a reason you want to touch in with them and talk about something of that. And part of that conversation, you can easily then ask, how are you getting on? How's it been this week? And this sort of thing, rather than you call them to have that conversation of how you doing. Well, guess what? If that's why you're calling me, you go into a sort of a programmed answer. So it should be part of the normal work environment that you are regularly finding a reason to call them for a business reason, not just to check in on them, because that becomes they know what you're calling for, right? You're talking about something else, and part of the conversation is that warm part of, and how are you finding it the past few days? Is this project keeping you busy? You can make it part of a more natural conversation and more genuine. The other thing you can consider is, for those individuals that you feel may be struggling, is having a conversation with them. Look, I need some help on something. I've got a particular project that I'm working on as a leader. Could you take part of it off my plate? Make them feel wanted and needed with sub-special projects. That's outside their normal remit, maybe stretches them a bit, but maybe makes them feel more valued. The other thing to look at is what metrics you're looking at of the behavior. Because as you rightly say, there are tools to do this. What I've seen is a lot of people just use pure tools that the manager looks at. CRM stats around how many calls they've made, or how many new opportunities they've created, how many tickets they've closed, etc. And that's really me as a manager looking at that and looking at an individual's performance. And if it isn't good enough, what do? Bring the stick in. One of the things you can do there, and it's a little bit slanted towards what we do at OneUp, but is you can, on top of CRM data, very easily, you can present that data to those employees in a more interesting way. And a lot of people have been turning this on during COVID, is gamifying that data. Because you've already got the data, is representing it in a way that all of those employees see it in a very friendly manner, gamified. So for example, you might have 5 or 6 metrics that a particular team, it's important to have that they're behaving right and creating activity around those metrics, because that is the cause of the outcome you want. If they're not making calls, they're not following up, they're not creating opportunity, or whatever, they're not doing these things, we know we're not going to get the successful outcome. Well, easy, put some points around those things, present a leaderboard, and have something on a screen that you can display to all of them, even remotely, which during the day keeps them up to date on how they're doing against their peers. So it makes it a bit of fun as well, right? There's no problem with having a bit of fun at work on work factors. So we've seen a lot of people use this to gain, it's about marginal gains. You don't have to take someone working at home and double their performance and output, but if you can get a 5 or 10% gain through simple things such as this, presenting it, making it a bit competitive, and letting them know where they stand, and let everyone can see, oh crikey, Joe's on top of the leaderboard today, I'm gonna beat him tomorrow. Driving that, because then it becomes self-motivation. It doesn't need you calling them to say you're falling behind. They can see it all the point during the day. They can see where they're at. My kids are gamified, right? They're doing learning online at the moment, and if they see someone in their class is a bit ahead, they put a bit more effort in and put a few more hours in to do it, rather than me standing over them saying, you need to do another hour of this maths. Which one would you prefer? The individual doing it themselves, or which manager wants to micromanage and call people and prompt them and tell them? So there's simple things you can do to gamify the data you've already got that you can turn on very, very quickly and create a bit of fun in the team that wasn't there before.
I think this is a fantastic idea, Ian. I think I think I've never heard this before. Gamify your performance itself. So I have one question. Do you
Sure.
have some Excel-based model, or are there any tools available to do this? Because to be imaginative also will take a lot of time for people like us. If it is something ready-made available, I can use it simply.
Yeah, it's a bit biased because it's what we do at OneUp Sales. We have a very simple cloud-based tool that you turn on, and it will suck data from lots of different systems very easily. The data you've already got, and just gamify it for you and make it pretty on screens with nice images. The users can even put their own photos in, and if you wish, put their own sounds in, so that if they do something that makes it successful, you know, they close the most tickets there. Whatever you decide is something to be celebrated, it can create an alert with their sound and their picture on the screen, telling everyone, wow, look how this individual did today. So yeah, we've got a tool that does that. That's very easy. And the beauty of it is, this isn't a big decision for people to make, but it really means something to your employees. And for the managers, it means you don't have to micromanage. It creates self-motivation in people on a daily and hourly basis. It shouldn't be once a week you check in, look at the metrics, and then go, you're not doing good enough. That doesn't cause corrective behavior. If someone can see all the time how they're performing against their peers, you know, in the office you could see it, but if you could see it now remotely, wouldn't that be interesting? That you start going, oh, I need to do a bit more today now because I can see I'm third place, I'm fifth place. I want to be up there today. And you start behaving, and it's self-adjusts. It's such a wonderful thing to see.
So what is the input for this data? You know, how the measurement will get into the system to make sure that the grading happens?
Yeah, so the way we do it, we suck the data from your CRM system automatically. So it's pretty easy. All you have to decide as a business is what data needs to be measured that you want to be represented. we link it so it sucks that data in automatically. So we're automatically checking for that data and pulling it in. So you don't then have to do anything. There's no manual. You can manually upload spreadsheets and do data. You know, you can do, but you don't really want to be doing that, because now you've created someone a job of doing this. And the key thing about gamifying data is it needs to be up to date. People need to trust the data and see it very simply. And then you just yourselves go, how do I want to represent this? And here's a really interesting thing. It isn't just about people playing against people. You can have teams against teams, and you can have different size teams, with it automatically balancing it. So if you've got a team of 6 people against 10, it automatically makes it fair and balances the metrics that it's like you've got 10 against 10 competing. So it gives more points relatively to the 6 appropriately, so that if they did the same behavior, fair outcome. So it's a great thing for driving team behavior, team targets, individual targets and behavior. And you can even have it that people can challenge each other. Wouldn't it be great? I'm sat here right now. I want to challenge Bob, who's the other side of the country, but in my team. I want to challenge him today to do more calls than me. I want to challenge him today to close more tickets than me, create more opportunities, whatever it is. I can issue that challenge as an individual. I don't need to go to management. I can start doing it myself and getting the team to compete with each other. And we all do it. We all live in a gamified world, in our consumer world. We all have applications that give you points and you get badges for it. You know, if you do Salesforce training online, you know, training systems, learning management systems are typically gamified, and you earn badges for each level you get to, and it drives self-motivated behavior. It works scientifically and psychologically. Gamification drives the right behaviors within people across the world. Why wouldn't we do this in business?
In fact, while you were speaking, you know, I was trying to apply it to my own company, and it gave me an idea. You know, why can't we make the dashboard itself as a screensaver for everyone? So whenever you look at your screen, you know exactly which team is doing better and which is not doing better. Yeah. And then it will inculcate the ideas of you know, competing between teams. And then if a team leader is prudent, and if he wants to basically compete with another team somewhere in some other city, he will exactly know which is the individual bringing his team score down, and then they will fix that point. So I think it's very interesting. How do we get access to this, Ian?
Sure. So by all means, two ways. One is, thank you for giving me that opportunity. One is come to oneupsales.co.uk, or by all means, come to me individually at ianmoyse.co.uk. That will take you to my LinkedIn profile, and by all means, engage with me personally, whether it be you just want to have some questions or guidance on this, or you're actually interested in a technology to help facilitate.
amazing because so far what we have done is, and we were thinking that we have nailed the problem. I'll tell you exactly what we have done. We have actually migrated all our employees to something called virtual office, and to give more personal time to each other. So like in the real world in 2019, we used to call each other for a cup of coffee. So we still do that, but we actually create a breakout rooms and we bring each other, individual coffees. The other person will bring his coffee, I'll bring my own coffee, and then we have coffee together. So up to that level we have done that. But I think you're talking about a next level, because you're now talking about using the digital world to automatically propel in the forward direction. So I think it's amazing. It's very, very
Thank you.
interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm sure a lot of viewers who are watching this may be interested in reaching out to you and leveraging this whole gamification concept. If there are ready-made tools available, they will like to access it. I'm sure a lot of viewers may be interested in doing this.
Super. Thank you. Look forward to hearing from some of you.
Right. Ian, it was a great pleasure talking to you today, and we will find some other great opportunity to discuss something else. But I think today's subject about
Thank you.
how to motivate your employees while managing them remotely using gamification as a concept is really, really mind-blowing. So thank you very much for sharing this with us.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
So see you next time, Ian. Take care, and we will catch up soon. Bye-bye.